Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Ben Buchanan, and it's really great to have you here tonight. Tonight's webinar goes for an hour and a half. It's going to be a broad overview of AI generally, but then we're going to get down to the nuts and bolts of how clinicians can use AI, and particularly NovoNote, the new tool released by NovoPsych, in clinical practice. A little bit about me. I'm the CEO and co-founder of NovoPsych, clinical psychologist, board-approved supervisor, and principal psychologist of Foundation Psychology Victoria, and an adjunct research fellow at Monash University, where I publish research on routine outcome monitoring, body dysmorphic disorder, and assessment generally. I founded NovoPsych in 2012, and our mission has been to help mental health clinicians use psychometrics and AI to improve client outcomes. We've just recently added the AI bit to our mission statement because we believe, and I believe, that it is such a powerful and enabling technology that it will do a fantastic job at our central mission, which is helping clinicians help clients improve their lives. And so it's a great honor to be serving over 75,000 clinicians, 900 practices. We're doing over 40,000 assessments for clients each week. And NovoPsych, which was, as many of you will know, was originally only a psychometrics platform. We have 150 psychometric questionnaires on NovoPsych, and we work with some of Australia's and the world's leading mental health providers. For example, in Australia, every AFL player gets administered psychometric questionnaires from NovoPsych a couple of times a year. We've got contracts with the Defence Department, the Department of Health, but mainly, and really my passion, is working with private practices. And it's really a natural fit that NovoPsych will be has moved into creating a new platform, NovoNote. If you haven't got an account yet, we are actually giving free accounts away up until March. So if you go to the website, novopsych.com.au, and just press sign up on the top right or activate free account, you'll get a free account until March. NovoNote allows you to record audio from a session, and then that step 2, NovoNote generates comprehensive clinical notes tailored to your preferred style, and you quickly review it, edit it, and then save it. And so goodbye spending all those hours each week on clinical notes. I think that NovoNote will not only reduce the time you spend on it, but I hope, and this is my genuine hope, increase the quality so that we can actually benefit our clients as well. So a little bit of a summary about what we'll talk about. We'll talk about AI generally. We're going to identify and manage strengths and limitations of AI note-taking. We're going to identify how AI note-taking can enhance efficiency, reduce administrative burden, and importantly, improve the quality of clinical documentation. We'll evaluate risks and recognize ethical implications, and there are lots of these. Discuss best practices, including client consent, which is super important. We're going to explore ways NovoNote can free up cognitive bandwidth, allow practitioners to focus more fully on their clients during sessions, and learn to. And finally, I'm going to give you a brief lesson on how to create your custom templates so you can get the most out of NovoNote and make it produce notes that are tailored to how you want to work, how you think about clients, because I know that everyone does things a little bit differently. So I want to introduce you guys to a bit of a concept, and this is the technology adoption curve. Like most characteristics in humans, some people take on technology really early, the innovators and the early adopters, and some people take on technologies really late, the late adopters and the laggards. And that's normally distributed. And the yellow line represents the market saturation of a particular technology. So for example, now in Australia, pretty much everyone has a mobile phone. But in the early days, it was only very few, just the innovators and the early adopters, and then everyone else got onto it the late majority, and then finally the laggards. Your grandma's probably got a mobile phone by now, and we reach almost 100% with adoption of mobile phones. And we can track the adoption of new technologies over over the decades, and people have observed that modern technologies are being adopted more quickly. So, for example, it took 5 decades for the US households to go from 10% adoption of electricity to 99%. But in contrast, it took 15 years for social media to go from 5 to 79. And also AI and ChatGPT in particular was the fastest adoption of new technology ever. When it was released, they got to 1 million users in only 5 days. So things are happening quickly, and certainly the AI space is evolving extremely quickly. And I want to sort of reflect about adoption of technology among private practice psychology clinics. So I think probably, I'm not sure how many of you are in private practices. This is certainly my background. Many psychologists, psychiatrists are in private practice in Australia. And what I've observed is that, firstly, with practice management software like Galaxy or Core Plus or Power Diary, now called Xander, in 2000, there was not very many people using it, and then it was a bit slow, and then slow and steady. And now, well, I would say we're 100%, but I was at a conference the other day and chatting to someone that's still using paper notes, paper diary. So we're definitely not at 100% market saturation with practice management software. It's been a long road. And then, another adoption curve, which is interesting, is the digital assessment adoption curve. And NovoPsych's been a part of that. We launched in 2012. So, right down the bottom where people weren't really doing digital assessment. And of course, that's been a slow and steady increase. Still definitely not at 100%. There are some people that, maybe will never get to 100% among mental health practices because some clinicians just don't do assessment that much. Telehealth, for example, Zoom. The technology for telehealth has been around for years. Skype, was a thing from, 2005 probably. But in mental health practices, it just wasn't used, even though the technology was absolutely ready for prime time. And then something happened in 2020. These adoption curves aren't necessarily when the tech is ready. It can also be cultural, or in this example, funding. Medicare did not fund telehealth sessions for psychologists or many practitioners before the pandemic. And then AI, really it's just starting. I think we are just at the start of the adoption curve. So some people will argue that it's not true intelligence, it's just predicting the next word. And others believe that AI is about to take over the world and outsmart humans on every single parameter. I'm going to present some evidence soon to support my view, and also warn you about some of the limitations of AI, and there are lots. Of course, the most well-known AI is ChatGPT, launched in November 2022. But of course, ChatGPT can't be used in clinical settings because it doesn't have the same sort of privacy of things like NovoNote. And I want to just contextualize this in going back to 1966, where the start of chatbots was actually had psychology at its core. The first chatbot, called Eliza, was actually designed to simulate a conversation with a human, and specifically a Rogerian psychotherapist. So Rogerian psychotherapist being sort of humanist and kind, caring, warm. And so the very first chatbot was designed to be a therapist. And what do you know, all these years later, chatbots still won't replace human beings, because humans and connection, the therapeutic relationship, and the heart is at the core of healing, not just technology. when we think about cognitive capacities and the strengths of humans versus the strength of computers, computers have for decades had huge strengths that humans don't have. For example, computers have almost infallible memory and humans do not. The probably the most used technology in the therapy room that psychologists use is the no pattern pen. That is a technology that we use to remediate against our collective disability of memory. We just don't call it a disability because it turns out that just everyone's got that disability. Computers do not have that disability. Computers are very good at maths. We all have those very cheap calculators that could do more maths than we ever could. And computers for a long time have been good at repetitive processing. And in 1997, computers were able to beat the world's best chess players. And so it's been obvious for a long time that computers have cognitive advantages over humans in many things. For a long time, it was thought that things like pattern recognition, understanding language, learning and adaptation, and creativity were only human things. But along comes AI, and it turns out AI can honestly do those things mostly better than humans. Not always. I think probably humans can understand non-verbal language much better than AIs because AI hasn't had the training data yet to get good at that. But AI can do creativity. It really can do creativity in the same way that humans doing creativity is just connecting two disparate ideas together to create something novel. AI can do exactly that. Humans, I think, still do emotional intelligence. We do moral and ethical reasoning better. And we do I'd still argue we do true innovation a little better, although AI has been generating original ideas for a little while. But really, that love heart represents, something that AIs will never be able to do, which is having heart and soul. And if you work in mental health, that you know that to be an effective clinician, often we're bringing our heart and soul into it, particularly if we're working therapeutically and doing interventions. And there have been people that are evaluating the cognitive capacities of AI against human benchmarks, which I think is really fantastic. So this study published on the 9th of October, 2024. So that's a recent citation, right? Very recent citation. They evaluated an AI against on the WAIS standard IQ test, and this is what they found. So by way of comparison, the average human gets 50th percentile and scores in the average range for verbal comprehension, perceptual reasoning, working memory, processing speed. That's all pretty obvious, right? AI from this paper scored on the 98th percentile for verbal comprehension, but scored extremely low for perceptual reasoning. This is like a matrix reasoning task. So like the task where you show people a puzzle and you're like, what's the thing that comes next? Scored extremely badly, just could not do it. Working memory was amazing, and they weren't able to replicate processing speed just for some methodological reasons. I'd probably argue that AI is superior at humans on most processing speed jobs. And so that result was in October 2024. And then 2 weeks ago, OpenAI's 4.0 model was released. And instead of perceptual reasoning being on, the first percentile, it's now on the 99th percentile and in the very superior range, which was really giving it a full scale IQ on the 99th percentile. One caveat though, on perceptual reasoning, in order to answer one matrix reasoning question, it cost $3,000 in electricity per question. AIs are consuming a massive amount of electricity. And while a human being, can answer a matrix reasoning thing, probably on the calories from one grape, an AI is taking $3,000 of electricity. So I think humans still sort of have an edge in that we can do things more energy efficiently. But I suppose I wanted to show this because the field of AI is evolving so fast. From the published research in October 2024 to 2 weeks ago, perceptual reasoning went from the first percentile to the 99th. And 2025 is going to be a stellar year of changes. And I'm spending a lot of my time keeping abreast of the changes so that we can create tools at NovoNote that are going to help you, the clinician. But LLMs can fail in some very strange ways. If you've ever worked with people with traumatic brain injury, you sort of know that sometimes they can have some very odd blind spots and not quite understand something that seems immediately obvious, even though they're, maybe intelligent in lots of other ways. There have been lots of studies showing that LLMs just can't grasp some things. One of my favorite ones is asking ChatGPT how many R's are in the word raspberry. This is sort of a meme that went around the internet. And of course, you'd think, ChatGPT is pretty smart, but it says the word raspberry has 2 R's. And so I'm going to say, actually, there is 1 R. And it will say, you're right, my apologies for the error. The word raspberry indeed has 1 R. And so here's another problem with LLMs and AI. They are very agreeable. You can tell it anything and it will agree with you. And so while they are incredibly intelligent from an IQ point of view, they do have some serious blind spots and they do make errors and they lack common sense sometimes. So we've got to be using these tools in a really discerning way, so that we can amplify what us humans do best and outsource what an AI can do to it so we can free our cognitive bandwidth. And when you Google psychologist, 9 out of 10 images have us holding a notepad and pen. And the reason is, like I mentioned before, humanity is collectively disabled when it comes to memory. And so the reason we do notes in the first place is to remediate against our cognitive weakness of forgetting. We have to have notes to be a good therapist. And I think it's worth considering more broadly, why do clinicians in mental health do notes in the first place? And I think depending on your personality, if anyone knows the personality distinction, a promotion-focused individual who's always going after the good thing versus a prevention-focused individual who is always trying to prevent themselves from bad outcomes. I think that really the reason we do notes is in 2 categories. It's promoting our clients' needs or preventing bad things from happening to us. And of course, to promote our clients' needs, doing notes is really helpful for them because it aids our memory. It helps the clinician remember the content to help us orientate ourselves to the stuff we talked about last session for the upcoming session. When I'm writing my clinical notes, or when I'm editing my notes from NovoNote, really what I'm doing is I'm thinking, what do I need to know next session in order for this person to get the very best out of next session? We also use notes as a process for reflection. Writing and reviewing a session allows the therapist to reflect on the discussions and insights. And there's lots of research on, writing being a really great tool for reflecting and processing. And so that's another reason we write notes. And of course, we do it to track progress, so that we can see the development over time and refer back to it. The more sobering side, we do it to protect ourselves as well. We do it for legal reasons. Accurate records provide a factual account of therapeutic interactions, serving as evidence in legal situations to demonstrate appropriate care and adherence to professional standards. We do it for ethical reasons. Maintaining thorough notes helps ensure that therapists' actions align with ethical guidelines, and we do it for risk management as well. You know, we all know that when we've got a risky client, that there's something complicated, or we know that there's going to be a legal case, that we approach our notes a little bit differently. We emphasize the protection of ourselves in those cases. Whereas in other cases where it's a relatively straightforward client, we might be leaning more to, we're writing these notes to really benefit our client and so that we can be the best therapist we can be. I've certainly met in my supervision with junior psychologists. I've met lots of psychologists that lean one way to notes are just about protecting themselves and ethical and legal. And I've met people that lean all the way the other way. I think in reality, it's good to be somewhere in between. I think the other thing is our notes really help us sort the messy, complicated stuff in session. You know, the client will talk about their dog, their cat, their wife, their house, you know, all sorts of irrelevant stuff. In fact, many ways you can just think about therapy as taking something messy and fitting it into a model that makes sense for us, but also ultimately the client. Turns out AI can do this really well. You can give it messy data in, and it can create very ordered data on the way out. I'm going to have a drink of water while my past self explains to you a little bit about what NovoNote is. NovoNote is an AI note-taking assistant that helps clinicians put down their notepad and pen and give their full attention to their client. My name is Dr. Ben Buchanan, a psychologist and creator of NovoNote by NovoPsych. We created NovoNote to help clinicians utilize AI to save time while automating comprehensive clinical notes. Just start a session and the audio is transcribed and saved as a clinical note in the format that you choose. And the feedback we've received is that psychologists are saving hours each week by producing a high-quality first draft of notes to review and save. NovoNote is available to all NovoPsych users on computer, iPad, phone, or telehealth. And we've put privacy and security first, which you can read more about on our website. To get started, you'll need to ask for your patient's permission, and we've published consent forms and explanatory statements on our website. At the start of your next session, receiving consent is as easy as saying, "I'm using a microphone and automated note-taking assistant to help me document what we talk about in today's session. Is that okay?" We've found that 99% of patients happily consent, and a NovoNote fact sheet is on hand if they have any questions. Clinicians tell me that they feel like they're able to tune into their clients more as they put down their clipboard and regain eye contact and focus on the connection with their clients. At the end of your session, just review your automated notes, make some changes, and save. Depending on how you work, you can choose to focus your notes on assessment and diagnostic issues, therapeutic and process issues, CBT, ACT, or even generate a letter. To get started, activate NovoNote and press Record Session. If you've got any questions, do get in contact with us here at NovoNote by NovoPsych. I'm going to do a screen share in a moment to show you actually how it works. We've really designed it to be really simple. You essentially press record in the session, do the session as you normally would, and then NovoNote will create a personalized note for you, getting rid of all of the irrelevant stuff from the session and only putting in the stuff that a psychologist would, or a clinician, a psychiatrist. We've got various notes for various professions. And then you can copy that note into practice management software with one click. And we taken security protocols and compliance extremely seriously, where we've made we're HIPAA compliant, Australian Privacy Principles compliant, and GDPR compliant, which is the European standard. NovoPsych's been in this healthcare industry since 2012. We've seen lots of security standards evolving, and and we've developed best practices along the way. And so we feel really comfortable with the sort of compliance that we've got. Me and my Chief Technology Officer, Michael Toogood, probably the majority of our conversations this week have been around how we can further enhance our security. The space is constantly evolving, and it's not just a set it and forget thing. It's something that we've got a team of people that are constantly looking at. One thing that is also important to notice is that no audio recordings are saved. While we do use audio to create a word-for-word transcript, that audio is not saved. It is gone. We don't have access to it. And we've made that choice because we just don't think that there's any need to have audio recordings saved. We really only want to save the data that is going to value add for clinicians, and we didn't see a value add for saving the recordings. And obviously, we've been audited a number of times through getting contracts with Defense Department, Department of Health, various universities. Universities tend to have very strict compliance. And there are also downloadable resources on our website. If you go to NovoPsych.com, and then if you go here, you can go to NovoNote Security, and then you can download, you can get a PDF that will just give you the a consent form. I'd really encourage you to read through this, and then probably what I'd encourage you to do is download the Word document of it, adapt it a little bit for your setting, for your practice. And we've also got a fact sheet as well. This is really handy to have on hand in your clinic so that if a client asks you about it, you can give them this. It will provide all of the basic information that someone might want. It includes things like, we don't use personal data to train an LLM. And that's super important because you really want to have you want to make sure that the personal data going into it is not used for any other purpose except for the express purpose of creating notes. And so they're all available if you go to novopsych.com.au. And of course, APRA has put out guidelines on AI. APRA has realized that everyone's using AI, and so that they've got to say something about it. And APRA underscores that when using AI tools, especially those involving personal data, such as AI scribing tools that record private consultations, practitioners must secure informed consent from clients. And the APS is also saying, highlighting that incorporating AI into psychological services necessitates a reevaluation of informed consent processes. I would encourage you to have a look at our templates, and then with your standard informed consent processes, add a little section on the use of AI, because best practice is really to have a written consent form with a signature on it. And then also, I think getting verbal consent, at least in session 1, is really gold standard as well. So one question that often comes up is, does the transcript make up part of the client file? So what NovoNote does is the audio will be transferred into a word-for-word transcript of your session, what you say, what the client says. And then that word-for-word transcript will then be summarized into a clinical note. I think that there's been lots of people expressing lots of opinions about whether the transcript is actually part of the clinical file. And if it is, it means we've got to retain it for 7 years, right? But if it's not, we can discard it. My view, and I'm not a lawyer, but I have consulted a few lawyers about this. My view is that a transcript is not part of the client file, and I'm going to explain why. I want to draw your attention to the Psychology Board of Australia and their published Code of Ethics, which is it's not in effect now actually, but it's going to come into effect in December 2025. It reads in clause 8.5, maintaining clear and accurate client records is essential for continuing quality service provision and good governance. The form and content of your records will depend on the nature of the services you provide, your work setting, and other factors such as legal and organizational requirements. So they've basically said you need to keep clear records, but what's in those records is up to your organization, is up to legal requirements, up to your setting. So essentially use your discretion. They go on to say, effective practice nevertheless includes that you keep accurate, up-to-date, factual, objective, legible, and accessible records that report relevant details of the services provided in a form that can be understood by other practitioners or colleagues. So I think the key word there is relevant detail. This is why you do not need the whole transcript. The whole transcript is not relevant. You talk about all sorts of things. You don't need that as part of your client file. And the other bit of it is that it can be understood by other practitioners and colleagues. The other cognitive limitation human beings have is our working memory is, only about 7 things at a time. We cannot possibly remember everything in a transcript. If you want to get a sense of what happens in a session, you don't want to read the whole transcript. You spend hours doing it. It's a waste of everyone's time. So to make notes more understandable to other practitioners and colleagues, you have a summary, not a transcript. Clause D as well, ensure that records are sufficient to facilitate continuity of services provided. So it says the word sufficient. The reason I've highlighted that is that in nowhere it says sort of comprehensive or everything, don't let any detail out. There's no mention of that whatsoever. So my very strong opinion is that transcripts do not make part of the client file. You might have a different opinion, and in particular, your organization might have a different opinion as well. I certainly do know of an organization that they do keep transcripts, and in fact, they've been doing it for years, even before the invention of AI. And so in that setting, they've made the choice that the transcript does form part of the client file. If you're in a private practice, your organization is going to need to make your own choices. The analogy would be, I think, that in session we write messy notes on a notepad and pen, and then we record that messy note onto our computer, our practice management software, and then we shred and discard the written note. The same thing happens in NovoNote. A full transcript is created, and then NovoNote makes a draft summary. So it turns, those 5,000 words from a session into 200 words draft summary. And this is only a draft and always needs to be reviewed by the practitioner. The clinician edits the summary and decides the information to enter into the final clinical record. You've got to make your note yours. And then transcript discarded. NovoNote will save and retain the transcript for 3 months, and then it will delete it. You can change that setting to make it immediately delete it, or you can change the settings so that NovoNote never deletes it. The default setting is 3 months. And the reason we've set it at 3 months is that it allows you to make various versions of various letters. If you're doing a big comprehensive report, for example, where you're synthesizing lots of information from lots of sessions, it might make sense to have all the information from previous sessions, but we've set it up to be 3 months and deleted. I'd encourage everyone, if you're going to be using this, review that setting in NovoNote, make a decision, and make it part of your practice's policy. So I want to give you a demo of NovoNote now, enough of slides and more just getting into it. Of course, here we are on the NovoPsych website. And if you don't have an account, again, do press sign up and do get yourself an account. And you press login, you'll see the very familiar NovoPsych interface with all of the many psychological assessments that we have there, but we're here to talk about NovoNote, which is the icon up the top. So I've clicked that, and you'll see that the clients within NovoNote are the same clients that are in NovoPsych. So if you create a Stephen Smith in NovoNote, it will go into NovoPsych and vice versa. This is a really important part here to make sure that your browser has permission to listen. The first time you use it, you'll have to give the permission. The browser will have to get permission to use it, and then also you can choose the sort of note that you want. I've chosen the comprehensive psychology note, which is the standard default note. But you can also choose from clinical supervision template, cosmetic readiness assessment, or many more. And then we simply start the session. You can see here that the green indicates that it's listening. And you can see that I can press the X there if I don't want it to automatically stop recording after 50 minutes. I think that having it automatically stop recording, which is the default after 50 minutes, is a good thing to do, just so you know that it will stop. We've also got a pause button so that you can pause the session if someone goes to the bathroom. And if you want, you can press end session. It will then process the audio, then immediately turn that audio into a transcript and then delete the audio, and then come up with some notes. And you can see here that the session content, it said the discussion was around automatic recording settings. Recording will automatically stop after 50 minutes. Option to press X to continue recording beyond 50 minutes. Recommendation to keep audio on. So essentially just, summarize what I said. We've also got some feedback and rate note options down the bottom right. I'll just go back up to home, and I want to show you some notes from a dummy client that I've created called Alex Smith. And you'll see here that on the top left, you can navigate to actually Alex Smith's file, and you can see that I've got 5 notes all done today. And I'm just going to go through them to show you what they look like. So this is a transcript, this is a first session note. So this is sort of a standard first session. It's for Alex has body image anxiety, came in thinking that they had body dysmorphic disorder. And so with all of these headings, the NovoNote has organized the note around the predetermined headings from the first session template, specifically saying that the client reports feeling unhappy about their appearance, particularly their nose. Concerns about appearance are affecting their daily life, including work and social situations, and they think they've got body dysmorphic disorder. And they've seen a dermatologist before, but it wasn't helpful. And then we've got a whole bunch of other information. Again, these titles are defined by the template, which I'll show you in a bit. And I'll even do a mental state examination. It obviously can't do things like appearance because, NovoNote is not vision enabled yet. And you'll notice that it says the diagnosis is possibly body dysmorphic disorder, but brackets to be confirmed. And that's really important because, NovoNote cannot diagnose, only you can. And the thing I love the most actually about this template is it'll do a 5P formulation, the presenting problem, predisposing factors, for example, family history of mental illness, precipitating factors, breaking up with partner and comparing self to others, perpetuating factors, mirror checking. We know part of the CBT model for BDD is that mirror checking is actually a perpetuating cycle in body dysmorphic disorder, and then protective factors as well. And NovoNote will do this all automatically without you having spoken about the Ps in the therapy session. It will organize that all for you. It'll also pull out any goals that were mentioned in the session and talk about next steps as well. And so I just think that, does an amazing job and really more comprehensive than I think a human would. Then you can copy those notes and put them into your practice management software. Or if you notice that something is not included that you want to be included, you can write something in like, did work as a mechanic, but not for several years. And then you can copy that and put it into your standard practice management software, like paste it into Galaxy or Core Plus or Xander or whatever. You can also see that there's a word-for-word transcript here with speaker A and B. And you can see we've actually got redaction turned on. So redaction will get rid of any identifying information and just put some hashes there. And you can see that we've also said this transcript will auto-delete in 3 months after the note is created. This setting can be changed. Again, do review those settings and see what you personally want to do. We'll go back to Alex in general, and I'll show you another type of note that we've created. This time, the template is a comprehensive psychology note. And this is the default template. It's very similar to the first session, but it's got a real emphasis on interventions. And some people have given me feedback that, well, you know how when you're in a session and you sort of get to the end and you think, what did we actually do? Did I do any actual psychology or were we just talking? NovoNote is actually really fantastic at pulling out interventions that you did, even though you might be being hard on yourself and not sort of realizing that you were actually doing therapeutic work. It will tell you what you did. It will say that you did validation. It will put in that there was some CBT there. Here's another one, and this is a real game changer for people. People don't like writing letters, turns out. And what you can do is NovoNote can simply listen to the session, and then you can use the GP letter template to write a letter for you. And so you can see here that, it says over the past few sessions, I've been working in cognitive behavior therapy to address symptoms consistent with body dysmorphic disorder. Then moving down, the patient has expressed interest in pursuing cosmetic surgery. And moving up. And then let's say that the letter wasn't quite right, and I really wanted it to confirm the diagnosis of body dysmorphic disorder and to really write to the GP saying that, and also to request a mental health care plan. I can use the smart edit function and it will regenerate this letter and include those things. And so you can see here that it's now changed. And it says, I am writing to update you on their treatment progress and request a mental health care plan. And then it also says, after a thorough assessment, I can confirm the diagnosis of body dysmorphic disorder. And so that's just the button in the top right, add context or smart edit. And the AI can write your letters for you. And again, down the bottom, it's asked for a mental health care plan review again, just to be thorough. And so this is really going to change a lot of, save a lot of time. Of course, you can copy that entire text to say Word and put it on your letterhead to fax it or email it or however you send things to your GPs or other people that you work with. So let's go back to Alex up the top left again. And I want to show you just one more letter type. And if there was one letter that I think is actually going to, or one thing that I think NovoNote has a real shot at improving client outcomes, it's this letter template, which is a therapeutic letter for the client. So this is a letter addressed to the client. And it says, I want to take a moment to reflect on our session today and acknowledge the courage it took for you to open up about your struggles with body image. You've been dealing with intense feelings. And so this is really a warm, kind, compassionate letter. When I showed a couple of colleagues this, they were absolutely staggered about how warm, compassionate, and kind this template was. And if you've ever written therapeutic letters, you know that it takes a long time and is actually really taxing to sort of synthesize all the information from a therapeutic encounter into a letter. NovoNote will do that for you. The other thing that's going to be really helpful for clients is that it's going to give them key takeaways. You could do this after every single session and give them the key takeaways from the session and then email them this or print it off for them. It says here, your feelings and experiences are valid. BDD is a real condition that can significantly impact quality of life. We'll work together at a comfortable pace to help you develop a more balanced view of your appearance. Keeping a diary of your thoughts and behaviors can be a helpful first step. So this is a way of reiterating the things that you talked about in a session so the client doesn't just forget. And again, you can just copy it into Word, put it on your letterhead, or just print it straight out and give it to them, just to reiterate those key takeaways from therapy to really enhance the impact of the really good therapy you're already doing. This is just going to make it that much more powerful. You can upload audio. You can dictate a note. If you don't want to record an actual session, you can press dictate note and just speak to NovoNote afterwards, and it will create a great note. Now I want to show you some settings, and particularly the transcript settings. Here's the setting about 3 months. Auto delete session transcripts after note is created. And like I said, you can choose. You can choose when that gets deleted. There's also some redaction information if you want to keep things super private, and you can change the default time to stop recording. Now, here's the juicy stuff. NovoNote has a bunch of really good templates designed for mental health settings. We know that everyone writes their notes a little bit differently, and so we've provided lots of different note templates, but you can also customize them. And so you can see here, these are the actual instructions that I'm giving the AI in order to write the note. So in the current presentation heading, I'm saying, describe the client's current presentation or presenting issue. And you can delete and change things. For example, if you don't want mental health exam, you can get rid of that. And let's say, you're looking at the interventions part and you just notice that the note just is not having the details you really want in the intervention section. You can say, you know what, I'm going to give it more explicit instructions on what I want it to say in a intervention section. And you can do things like say, let's say you're a schema therapist and it's just not picking up the correct schema modalities. You can put in for it to pick up on the maladaptive schemas that fit the client most and the coping modes, and describe specific interventions that occurred during the session. And then you can, save a new template and call it Comprehensive Psychology Notes Schema Focus. And then next time you do a session, if you choose that template, it will talk all about schema-related things. Let's say you're an EMDR therapist. You can make that your default template, and it will do it in an 8-part EMDR process. Here's the GP letter template. Everyone wants to do their GP letters in a slightly different way. We've created these instructions and they're very comprehensive, but you can edit and change them in order to make it in your voice and make sure that you getting the very most out of NovoNote. You can say we've got various bits about like the output format, and we've even got an example in the template. So I'd really encourage you after tonight to just look at these templates and then edit them and then experiment and see what happens. Let's say if we edited this one and then I called it GP letter Benz, then it gets saved. And then if I search in there, we'll see it, GP letter Benz. And then let's go back to Alex, and then we'll say, you know what, let's change this note to a GP letter that a template I've just written, and then a GP letter will be produced in the format that I have specified. And so it might take a little while to get the custom notes that you want, and then put them into a Word document on your letterhead, it's going to save you so much time in the long term, to just spend 20 minutes mucking around with templates and just learning how it works. I really think that this is going to be a massive game changer for so many people. So I just want to talk about a few pros and cons of different ways of using NovoNote. In particular, recording a session. The pro of it is that it's pretty passive. It's passive integration. AI just operates in the background. And it will also give you really comprehensive documentation because it's going to capture everything from the session and then put all of the relevant information in. And it's going to save you a lot of time too. But there are some cons. There might be inaccuracies in the interpretation. Sometimes AIs can get it wrong. For example, transcription is only 90% accurate. And it might not really understand some of the nuance. And also, you've just got to be thinking about privacy. Recording patient conversations requires strict adherence to privacy laws, and it requires consent. You must get consent from your patient if you are recording sessions. I think it's going to become a norm in the future. And certainly when you ask a client, they will typically just say yes, but you must get consent. It's probably a more accessible way of doing it is just using the dictation function. The dictation function just means that after the session that you would usually have, you just then talk, you just press dictate on NovoNote and you just talk to NovoNote as if you were writing notes, and it will write your notes for you. It means you've got more control over what goes into the notes. It's better from a privacy and consent standpoint. You actually do not require patient consent if you are just dictating notes afterwards. This is really important to realize, guys. If you don't feel comfortable getting client consent for a particular client, or for some reason, you can just use dictation afterwards. You're not recording them. You do not require consent. And one of the great things about using dictation, you can also put your clinical judgment in it. There's lots of unsaid things in the therapy room that if you're just using the transcript, the notes won't have those unsaid things. Whereas here you can verbalize the unsaid things and it will end up in your note. But there are cons in that it's a disruption because you've still got to use that pesky notepad and pen to know what to tell NovoNote afterwards. Bit more time consuming as well. And I want to draw your attention to something I think is going to be a big deal in the future, which is automation bias, which is referring to the human tendency to over-rely on automated systems, often accepting their output without sufficient critical evaluation, even when those systems may be flawed or incorrect. So automation bias is a thing. And so always check NovoNote notes. And there have been some egregious examples of people submitting AI-generated work into the legal system. For example, this one that hit the headlines last year was a child protection worker using ChatGPT. There was some sexual exploitation of a child, and this child protection worker put all of that into ChatGPT, but because of ChatGPT's censorship, it came back giving a very minimized and sort of glossing over any child exploitation and giving a positive spin on things, which was harmful. And this child protection worker had done it in over 100 cases. And as a result, the Department of Families, Fairness and Housing has banned the use of AI for 2 years. I certainly hope that they'll reevaluate that and use actual tools designed for the job like NovoNote when those 2 years are over. The final warning I want to give you is just because you can produce a whole bunch of documentations doesn't mean you should. Here's a meme. This person says, "Hey, AI, turn this single bullet point into a long email I can pretend I wrote." And then the person that receives it says, "Hey, AI, make a single bullet point out of this long email I can pretend I've read." This is particularly important for like GP letters. GPs do not want huge, long reports. They want a one-pager. So even though you can easily get NovoNote to write up something super comprehensive, don't, because it's wasting everyone's time. A few notes on best practice of NovoNote. It'll work on laptop, phone, or iPad. We've found the most reliable use is using a laptop and Chrome as the browser. And place the device in a position where it can be heard clearly. And also, the biggest error that happens is devices can go to sleep if they're not used. So just check your sleep settings on your device. If your laptop goes, or phone or iPad goes to sleep, it won't work. It will work on telehealth. If your software is within a browser, open a separate session of the browser to run NovoNote rather than just a separate tab. So for example, Google Meet runs in the browser, so it's best to open up a separate instance of the browser so that NovoNote will work well. And sorry, you can't use headphones yet. We are working on a fix so that you can use NovoNote with headphones. And also, when using on telehealth, just ensure it's picking up both sides of the conversation. And importantly, save and finalize your notes into your separate practice management software. So the things that are next for NovoNote, we've done a lot of work getting NovoNote to where it is, but 2025 is going to be a big year. Some features that are coming, you'll be able to connect multiple sessions together to write a letter or report. We're going to have lots of templates in the template library. You're going to be able to integrate NovoPsych psychometric results into the session note to get really objective psychometric data and more subjective verbal data, which I think is going to make us a class-leading quality note for mental health practitioners. I don't think anyone's going to be able to do better than us with that. And we're also going to have some functions for digitally assisted reflective practice. We've got some questions about pricing that I've seen have come through. We have been giving away free accounts. That free tier will end or be restricted in March. And we do have a number of tiers starting at $25 a month or $300 annually. It'll give you 50 monthly administrations of assessments and 50 AI-generated notes. If you work part-time, that's going to work really well for you. If you're working full-time and seeing heaps of clients, you might need Pro Plus with Insights, which gives you 100 AI-generated notes, or Platinum, which is unlimited. And you can also use it as part of a practice. It's only $30 per practitioner as part of a practice, which we think is very compelling and certainly more compelling than any other offering. Clinicians really do love this. We're constantly getting good feedback. One of the favorite pieces of feedback I got was this person said that they can be more present with their client in the therapy room without being distracted by their notes, to really tune in and do the human things in therapy, which we know are the healing things. And someone else said that she thinks it's been the biggest innovation in mental health care in her 30-year career. Finally, say some do's and don'ts. Seek consent, apply clinical judgment, ensure data privacy by using tools which are compliant with healthcare privacy laws, and limit data usage to what is necessary to avoid overcollection. And there's some more things, but I'm looking at the time and we're about to finish up. Hey, Carla, there might be some questions that are coming through.
Amazing. So many wonderful questions coming through, so much interest, and you're all thinking about it so curiously. So I'm so sorry I haven't got back to everyone, but maybe we could throw one or two at you, Ben, just at the conclusion.
And well, first of all, I'll ask you a question. You've been using NovoNote in your clinical practice. How's it been?
It has been, I'm going to be very positive here, of course. It has changed the way I practice. I can remember the first time I went to the toilet between sessions and just how euphoric that felt. So I so hope everyone has a wonderful experience playing with NovoNote as I have. But something that really resonated with me that you mentioned earlier was that it has also proven to be a really valuable self-reflection tool. It's quite amazing at picking up therapeutic interventions that I'm not always consciously employing. And it just really does highlight that we do a lot more in a session than we realize. So it's been beautiful for that too.
Yeah, cool. And so what are the big questions that have come through?
You've answered a whole bunch of them as you've been going throughout the presentation today. There was a really great, I thought, as we're coming towards the end of the session, tongue-in-cheek question. Does anyone worry about psychologists becoming redundant? But genuine feelings with this too. Lots of chat and back and forth. What about
Yeah,
becoming redundant?
I don't think so. I think that for psychologists, I think, and mental health clinicians, um, the work that we do is so soulful and heartfelt and so fundamentally human, that I don't think it will. I think lots of professions are going to be disrupted, more than psychologists, but the human touch on things, I think, is invaluable.
We're irreplaceable. Absolutely. Two more questions. Everyone's really conscious of data privacy and security, which is so brilliant. And people just wondering about our servers and where they're located.
Yeah, so our servers are located in Australia, and we are about to have multiple servers globally. So the US users will have US servers, UK users will have UK servers. At the moment, everything's located in Australia, and we're compliant with Australian privacy principles, HIPAA, which is a USA standard, and also GDPR, which is a European standard. And yeah, we think about security constantly.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay, one last one, but it's kind of a big one to finish with. So maybe there's not a load we can get into with this at the moment, but some of the benefits of NovoNote compared to some of the other note takers. So people are out there experimenting with some of the other options that are
Yeah,
available.
so I think that I mean NovoNote is really for mental health clinicians specifically. And so as these programs evolve, some of them will try and be all things to all people, and NovoNote is going to try and be the very best for mental health clinicians. The integration of psychometrics into NovoNote and the being able to integrate and inform the AI with the psychometrics data, I think is going to elevate the quality of notes a great deal, and it's really going to be able to assist to help clinicians see things that they wouldn't have otherwise seen. And so I think, if you're a mental health clinician, I think NovoNote is going to be a clear winner for you. But there's so much excitement around this. I think, GPs are using this, surgeons are using AI. Everyone's getting in on it, and I think it's going to be a fantastic 2025.
I think that's really interesting. And I wonder if a lot of clinicians will find this in navigating consent with their clients, that actually so many clients have not been put off by it. They've said, oh, my GP is already using this. So yeah, many of our clients are already familiar with technology.
Yeah, totally. So we'll finish up there, guys. Just to note, if you do see me, on social media or at a conference, or whatever, do say hello. Do reach out to us, send our team an email. Here's our team at our Christmas party. It's really an honor serving you, and a great privilege that so many people have trusted NovoPsych and now NovoNote over the years, to serve you. So please do keep in contact, and also send us an email with feedback for sure, because the best way NovoNote improves is and serves you best is by knowing what you want. So thanks for attending tonight, and we'll catch you later. Bye.